Good afternoon and welcome to today's Planning Committee meeting. My name is Councillor David Connor and I'm chairing the committee meeting here today. I would welcome those members of the public and press in attendance and those who are watching the live stream of this meeting via YouTube. Whilst this meeting is being held publicly, it's also being streamed via YouTube. Minutes of the meeting will be produced in the usual way and a recording of the meeting will be available to view on YouTube until such times that the minutes are produced. Please be aware that only audio from the microphones will be captured on the live stream. Therefore, those invited to speak need to ensure their microphones are on when speaking and as close to you as possible. To enable the meeting to run in an orderly manner, can all present keep their microphones off except when you're invited to speak? Please ensure that the microphone is turned off when you finish speaking. I would also like to ask everyone ensures their mobile phones are on silent or turned off for the duration of the meeting. Please be aware that the cameras will be on at all times during the meeting. With regard to the meeting, I must ask members of the public to refrain from interrupting. The only members of the public allowed to speak are those who have registered. Anyone who speaks must do in a respectful and polite manner. It is right there is meaningful discussion about the merits of applications, but we will not allow inappropriate language or personal attacks on councillors and their beliefs, on members of the public or on officers' professional advice. So without further ado, we'll go to agenda item 1, and I'd like to ask member services if we have any apologies for absence. So Joe, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. No apologies have been received. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Agenda item number 2 is to confirm and sign the minutes of the previous meeting, that before Christmas of the 14th of December 2022. Has anybody, can I have a proposer, or if everybody's happy with the minutes? Councillor Murphy? Councillor Scolding is going to second that. Those minutes have been approved. Well, we just show of hands first, I suppose, just a button and braces. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. So agenda item number 3, which is urgent items, there again, there are none. So we'll go to agenda item number 4, which is declaration of interest. Member services will now go to each councillor in turn. And can you please state if you have anything to declare in relation to any agenda items before us this afternoon? So Joe, please. Thank you.
Councillor Benny.
Thank you, Joe. The only thing this afternoon is Morton Hall. I've got 2 applications on the agenda this afternoon, and I do know Matthew Hall. He's done work for me in the past, and he's also working with Chatteris Grown Fenland project. So I do know him, but that will not prejudice me in any way.
Thank you. Councillor Connor.
Yes, I'm a member of Marchtown Council, but take no part in any planning, voting or anything else regarding planning at Marchtown Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cornwall.
No, nothing to declare, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Davis.
Nothing on this agenda, thank you.
Councillor Mrs French.
Thank you. I'm a member of Marchtown Council, but don't take part in any applications. Agenda item number 10, which is the boathouse. As a member of Cabinet, I've never had any dealings with this, so I do have an open mind.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Mayor.
I'm a member of Whittlesey Town Council, but take no part in planning. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy. Thank you. Councillor Purser.
Yeah, I'm a member of Marchtown Council. I take no part whatsoever in any planning applications at all.
Thank you. Councillor Scolding.
Yes, I'm a member of Marchtown Council, but do not take any part in any of the planning at Marchtown Council. And also number 7, I own part of the Chase, which runs down beside number 7, but I will have an open mind on that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Marks.
Those declare.
Councillor Sutton.
Thank you. Nothing to declare, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Joe. So we now go to the main part of the meeting, the planning applications. Just to remind members, although obviously they all know now, a proposal to grant or refuse an application should only be made when invited to do so. And if going against the officer recommendation, the proposal should be accompanied by the planning reasons for doing so. So now, without further ado, I'll hand over to David Rowan, Development Manager here at Fenland, to present application stroke FYR 22/0354F, agenda item number 5. So David, when you're ready, please.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a full planning application for the erection of 16 dwellings with associated garages, parking and landscaping, and involving the demolition of existing buildings at 134A Ramneth Road in Wisbech. I would initially just draw members' attention to the update report that has been circulated in respect to this item. So the application site is indicated in red on the location plan and on the aerial photograph. It is located between Ramneth Road to the east and Churchill Road to the west, and it's to the south of Wisbech Fire Station. As you can see, it's within a fairly established residential part of Wisbech. The site comprises garden land serving 134 Ramneth Road, and then a yard and mechanics garage, which is accessed separately from Ramneth Road. The scheme would involve the demolition of the existing structures on the site, removal of conifer trees on the site, and also boundary hedging. There was a previous grant of outline planning permission for up to 9 dwellings on the site in 2020, and then a detailed scheme for 18 dwellings on the site was refused in 2022. The proposed site layout can be seen on this plan, with the dwellings served by a 6-metre wide shared surfaced roadway taken from Ramneth Road. The access is shown to be in the position of the current access, which serves the commercial operation to the sort of rear part of the, or western part of the site, albeit some alterations are proposed to this access point. Plot 1 sits to the north of the proposed access road and seeks to continue the frontage development along Ramneth Road, with the remaining 15 dwellings then being to the rear, arranged around that sort of hammerhead arrangement proposed. A 1.8 metre high acoustic fence is proposed to the western boundary of the site, to Churchill Road, and also the northern boundary of the site adjacent to the fire station. Proposed street scenes can be seen on the next couple of slides. Here we've got with the full elevations and floor plans available within the agenda pack. So that here we've got the top image shows plot 1 in relation to the existing dwellings on Ramneth Road, and then the lower image shows plots 7 to 12 in relation to the fire station and 300 Churchill Road. And then we've got some street scenes of the proposed dwellings from within the site. As you can see, the design of these is somewhat more sort of modern, shall we say, than some of the dwellings that perhaps do come in front of the committee from time to time. To move on to the photographs of the site. So here, photo 1, the upper image shows the existing site, the access and the bungalow when viewed from Ramneth Road. And then photos 2 and 3 show the site from Churchill Road. Photos here show sort of various views within the site with the approximate location of those photos shown. And then again, further photographs from within the site, showing in particular the upper left image, kind of the existing sort of rear part of the site and the sort of commercial element, and then the other 2 images more showing the rear garden of number 134 Ramneth Road. So to summarise, the principle of development of the site for residential purposes has been established previously with the grant of outline planning permission in 2020. With regards to the current scheme, there are not considered to be any significant issues in relation to visual or residential amenity. The principle of access to the site and its redevelopment for residential purposes is not opposed, and the Highway Authority has confirmed that the change of use of the site will not result in intensification of use of the access. The development has been assessed in respect of its viability, with the conclusion being that no Section 106 contributions can be delivered, unfortunately. As such, it is recommended that the application is granted, subject to conditions as set out on page 55 of the agenda pack, and as amended by the update report. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you for that, David. We have one speaker on this application. I'd now like to invite Mr. Peter Humphrey. Of course, he's the agent to make his presentation to the committee. Mr. Humphreys, you've got 5 minutes and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. I see little point in reiterating what the planning officer said. And I'd like to take the opportunity of thanking Nikki Carter in particular for her work with us on this. It just does go to show that if we take a little time and work together, we can get what was a refusal for 18 into an acceptable scheme. We rotated some of the houses on Ramnath Road and reduced the density. And we've then come up with a recommendation for approval. And I'll leave it with you, members. Other than say many thanks to Nikki for her work, and I'm only here for questions.
Yeah, short and sweet, Mr. Humphreys. Members, questions, clarifications to Mr. Humphreys, please. No, thank you very much. Members, questions, clarifications to officers. Thank you. Everybody's very quiet this afternoon. No, I can't see any burning desire. So so thank you for that. Open it up for debate then. Who'd like to kick this off? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Firstly, I'd like to say that it's nice to hear the agent agree with what I've said on many occasions, that this planning authority does work with and will work with applicants and agents to bring in schemes that, you know, when they first come in are not acceptable, but they will work around and come and help to get them where they are. And that's to be applauded, as I've said many, many times before. And it's nice to hear Mr. Humphreys acknowledge that. Going on to the actual application and the dwellings, I don't see anything wrong with them at all. And there's no reason why we can't agree them, in my view. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for those kind words, Councillor Sutton. Councillor Murphy, thank you.
Well, the reason I'm coming in, Mr. Chairman, is because it was such a lull for a start. Now we wanted to talk, because I was going to say that I can see nothing wrong with this application whatsoever, and I'd like to approve it.
Well, frankly, I think it's a very good application, to be quite frank with you. I mean, the chances of the railway line reopening there, I think, are a little bit thin, so we haven't got that to worry about. So you did realise there was a railway line. Yeah, okay. Yeah, under the circumstances, I have no problem with any of this at all. And it is nice to see how we work with developers and we have a successful application then, I think.
Yes, you did mention that on the coach. The railway line was in the near vicinity of that, Councillor Cornwall. A little bit of local knowledge, I suppose. Thank you. Right. Councillor French, how dare I forget you, especially in that lovely orange jacket. Thank you.
Yeah, I think this is a good application. David did say there was no section 106, but I do see there's £150,000 in there for education. Is that correct? On page 44, 5.26.
Right, so has everybody finished? Oh, Councillor, no, you're all right. Okay, officers, would you like to come in there? Or say
Yes,
anything? Or-
through you, Chairman, I think just to pick up on Councillor French's point, notwithstanding what the County Council may have requested in terms of the education contribution, given that the application has been through that viability assessment, there is no section 106 in place for education.
Yeah, thanks for clarification. I know that county can request it, that we don't have the statutory duty to actually pay the money.
No, quite right. So, right, so anybody, so we're going to go looking for a proposer. Now, I've got one a couple of minutes ago from Councillor Murphy, so I'm going to take that. Have I got a second of that one? Councillor Mayor, thank you. just a mental block. Most people think I haven't got a brain, but it does go, it works sometimes and sometimes it doesn't. So, Councillor Mayor, I'm sorry for that. So we've got a proposal to go with officer's recommendation, approve this application, proposed by Councillor Murphy, seconded by Councillor Mayor. All those in favour, could we have that on that proposal? Yep.
Unanimous decision.
So that application has been approved. Thank you very much, members. So we now move on to David to present agenda item number 6, F/YR 220337F. David, again, when you're ready, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This is another full planning application for the erection of 7 commercial units within Class E, comprising 1 block of 6 units and 1 detached unit with associated car parking. Land south and west of March Enterprise Park, 33 Thornby Avenue in March. Initially, just draw members' attention to the update report that's been circulated. So the application site is shown in red on the location plan and aerial photo. It sits within the existing employment area and is accessed by a Thornby Avenue to the east of the site. There is an existing unit immediately to the north of the red line boundary, which will be referred to later. So the proposed layout plan is now shown on screen. So Unit C, sort of the application with the green lines on it, is Unit C, which is the one that I referred to earlier. So effectively the development kind of builds around that. The application then proposes Unit B, which sits to the left of this and which would be subdivided into sort of 6 individual units, and then the smaller Unit A, which sits fronting Thornby Avenue in the bottom right hand corner of the site. And as you can see, there's also car parking proposed around the new and existing unit as well. So the proposed floor plan for the smaller Unit A is shown here. This is the standalone unit. And then the elevations of this are shown. We then have the floor plans for the large Unit B, indicated earlier, the subdivision into smaller units, and then the elevations of Unit B. And then moving on to photos showing the views of the site at present. So to summarise, the application seeks permission for buildings to be used for purposes falling within Class E of the use classes order. As members will be aware, Class E is a broad use category which encompasses a number of uses, including offices and light industrial, which were formerly known as B1 uses, but also other uses such as shops, cafes, financial and professional services, clinics, health centres, creches, gyms and indoor recreation. As the application stands, it is therefore unclear as to what the application is actually proposing in terms of actual uses, and theoretically the development could be 100% retail. Policy LP6 of the local plan has very much a town centre first message and requires retail development out of centre of more than 500 square metres of floor space to undertake an impact assessment. Section 7 of the MPPF aims to ensure the vitality of town centres as well. No impact assessments or retail sequential test has been submitted to allow for the necessary consideration to be undertaken. And in addition, there was also the possibility of a loss of land for business use, which is also resisted by policy LP6 of the local plan. The applicants have not provided any clarification of the use despite being invited to. And consequently, the application needs to be determined as submitted. In addition, the car parking requirement for retail developments is higher than for the commercial uses and would result potentially in an under provision of spaces within the site. The officer recommendation is therefore to refuse planning permission as set out within the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, David. Once again, we have one speaker on this application. I'd now like to invite Adam Jackson. He's the agent, to make his presentation to the committee. When you're seated, you've got 5 minutes, and thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of this application. My name is Adam Jackson. I work for Grow Design Studio, the architectural practice who designed the scheme and submitted the application. So we are the agents for the application. Our client, the applicant, is a property holding investment company. They own the land within the red line and, as described, the additional land that surrounds the site, which is edged in blue on the location plan drawing. Within the blue land is an existing building containing 10 commercial units, all of which our client currently lets and advises us that they are fully let and have a history of successful letting in that area. Our scheme proposes 7 new commercial units, 6 of which are situated in a terrace along the rear or west of the site and 1 at the entrance to the site on the eastern boundary. The unit at the entrance to the site is planned to be a cafe, which would serve the development and the local commercial estate. The 6 units along the rear of the site were planned as a planning use class E, providing the range of permitted uses within this use class. Having owned and rented the 10 units adjacent to the application site for many years, as well as holding many more similar properties in the area, the applicant has an accurate, almost forensic knowledge of local market forces and has consequently confidently invested in this planning application. If approved, our client is confident that units will be built for a start and then will also be quickly rented, and they are also confident the cafe would be a worthwhile addition to the area. Turning to the planning officer's comments, we consider that the primary reason the planning department is recommending refusal for the application is due to the planning use class that we've chosen for the new buildings. The amount of floor space of this use and the lack of supporting documentation, the sequential test to prove that the new facility, the new development will not prejudice or cause any harm to the town centre. The council's adopted local plan refers to an out-of-date national planning use class order. This use class order was revised 3 years ago. The council's emerging local plan correctly recognises and incorporates the new use class order. And it's this new use class order and therefore the emerging local plan that we've chosen to nominate for our new buildings. The council's emerging local plan within LP40 allocates the site within land allocation zone LP40.01 and states that development proposals should fall into this area and fall into use classes B and E. And there is no specific subdivision of the class E use class. We consider therefore the applications should be considered appropriate with sufficient weight given to the emerging local plan. I'd like to draw attention to the deliverability of the scheme. So our client, being a larger commercial developer, has resources to start work almost immediately, if approved, of course. They imagine that the scheme would be worth about £2 million to the immediate local economy. And that's steelwork fabricators, roofers, cladding suppliers, electricians, building control, tarmac providers, surfacing providers. We consider that within 12 months, if the scheme is built, the scheme would generate approximately 40 new jobs on rotation, part-time, full-time, but it will be a massive stimulus to the local economy, particularly considering we're facing the longest recession the country has ever faced. We do recognise that there is no sequential test submitted within the application. However,
You have 30 seconds.
thank you. It was our approach to give sufficient weight and argument and a case towards the adopted and emerging local plan. If the application is refused, we will certainly come back with a new application which contains a sequential test. However, we would urge you today to consider the deliverability of this project before you today. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jackson. Members, questions, clarifications to Mr. Jackson? We've got a couple here. Councillor French first, and then Councillor Cornwall second. Thank you.
Thank you. When I first read this is absolute music to our ears. We're crying out for small industrial units. But unfortunately, this is an application, and I'm going to use Councillor Sutton's, another incomplete application. It hasn't got the sequential test. You're using Class E when most of the stuff up post Modern Thorpe are B2 and B10. It's disappointing that it is incomplete.
Thank you, Councillor French. Councillor Cornwall.
Thank you. Yes, I also think the application is incomplete. So if it's so incomplete and you don't know what sort of industries or commercial operations or retail units are actually going to take up your accommodation, how have you estimated 40 jobs?
The 40 jobs is anecdotal, and it's something that is comes from the applicant. They've got long experience in renting. They've actually already received expressions of interest for this new facility, one of which is a local kung fu club who would like to move there, and they can find no other premises in the area. We have actually carried out, again, anecdotally, a right move search today and over the last few months to try and find similar use classes within the town centre. And there is very, very limited supply of other commercial uses. Our client feels that a sequential test will be absolutely positive and will be supported. And we would really like to avoid the whole bureaucratic resubmission exercise, which will delay this project for another year.
Councillor Davis.
Yeah, I mean, you sit here and you acknowledge that this is an incomplete application. And then you say, but, oh, if you want us to come back with another application with a sequential test, then we'll do so. Well, why didn't you in the first place? That's one question. And the second one is, do you understand what an emerging local plan is? It is still in the consultation process, and therefore we cannot attach any real weight to it at all. So to sit before us and tell us to do that, we can't.
So in answer to your, would you like me to respond?
Please do.
In answer to your first point, we didn't attach the sequential test because, as I'd hoped I'd set out, our position was to allocate a proportionate weight to the emerging local plan. Rightly or wrongly, that was our position when we submitted the application in good faith. It was our understanding that there would be a negotiation process, and I believe there is a strong case to be made for this. So that was why.
I don't think he answered your second question, has he?
Sorry, yes, Mr. Jackson has actually answered the question, but I'm left sitting here thinking he perhaps doesn't understand the full procedure.
Yeah. Okay. Any more questions? I think I've got one. Is this just a now? Hell, we want some B1 industrial units. That's what we want in Fenland. We're short of them, and we would applaud them. We would applaud anybody who brings us these. So, what confidence can you give me and this committee that they will be small businesses units like the ones on your site that your personnel, your entrepreneur owns? So what can you give me on that to do that?
Well, during the course of the negotiation, we employed a planning consultant to liaise with the planning officer, and we offered a reduction, and it's also in answer to your point made earlier, but we offered a reduction in this kind of open Class E use class by reallocating some of the units to a use class that isn't a town centre use. This was found to be unacceptable by the planning officer, but we just didn't really understand why. Today, in fact, I will answer your question, but today, in fact, we did issue, so that the committee had a mechanism, if they felt that they could support the application, we issued a revised set of drawings to the planning officer via email, which reduces the amount of open class E to under the 500 square metre threshold, which is the tip in the balance for the requirement of the sequential test. So in answer to your question, how confident can we provide business units? All I can offer you is the testimony of the applicant that they constantly receive requests for all sorts of planning use classes for in this area. And so that's the whole purpose this project has come forward, is because they are inundated with requests. The Kung Fu Club, they've even had someone in the existing B1 units on our site who have asked to move into the new building. Yeah, so again, it's anecdotal, I'm afraid, for you. Yeah.
So what you're sitting here telling us now, you've had some revised plans to the planning authority today.
Yeah.
So it beggars belief to me, sitting here, just a mere layman, that that why wasn't this done sooner? I mean, planning committee is at 1 o'clock. The officers, with all due respect, haven't had time to look at this and to agree with it or not. So I just cannot believe, and I'm sure most of the committee cannot believe at the 12-hour, I fail to understand it. Thank you. So Councillor French. Sorry? You're all right. Oh, yeah, well, we are going to have questions to officers now if we're finished. Thank you very much. Questions to officers, please. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, as I did say, it's an incomplete application. But listening to the gentleman who did say they're working on the emerging plan, I mean, to my knowledge, we're not even half a quarter, the third way down. So how on earth can we look at this application on the emerging plan when we're still working on the old plan? Yes, as I said earlier, I am delighted that somebody wants to build industrial units around there. I know the site very well. I live in front of that site. But it should not be for cafes. I mean, the history of sorry.
Is it a question to officers, Councillor French?
How far are we down the line with regard to the emerging plan? Is it something we should be could look at, or should disregard it altogether at this time?
For you, Chairman, you can't put any weight on the emerging local plan at this time.
Thank you.
Right, Councillor Cornwall, questions to officers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. So am I right in saying that the issue really centres around the use, and the use itself could affect the car parking issue, which some of us saw the other day when we were there, when in fact we couldn't have even got our minibus into the existing car park, let alone any future one. So is it those two main issues that we're really talking about here? The classification of use and the parking?
Through you, Chair, yes, that's correct.
Yeah, Councillor Murphy, thank you.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chairman. When we went to have a look at this place, to have a look and see, I mean, it is a B1 place. It really does look it, and that's what it is. Under this class E class, I'm going to ask their officers now: is this just a way out of building out of town and taking everything away from the town centre and can build there? And if we pass it today, they can put anything there they want to.
Through you, Chairman, yeah, it essentially is set out within the report and is set out within my presentation. Class E covers a multitude of uses, including retail, including other uses which would be classified as town centre uses. So potentially, you could end up with, by the sounds of it, a cafe and 6 B1 units. You could also end up with a cafe and 6 retail units.
Yeah. But so what I'm saying is if we pass it today, that could happen. So we don't want it to happen down there. So if we refuse it today, they've got to come in with a better suggestion. Yeah.
Through you, Chairman, I think obviously it's within the committee's, or it's the committee's decision whether you wish to refuse the application or not. I think as the agent has indicated, if the application is refused today, then a further application will come in, which will presumably either have greater clarification on the actual uses proposed, or I suppose, be accompanied by the relevant assessment work to enable any impacts to be more adequately addressed than the current submission does.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm going back to the last planning we had here a month ago. We had something very, very similar to that, that if we passed it, we couldn't go back on it again. And it was for the applicants on their side. And this is exactly the same thing. And they're trying to get away with it again on this. I don't want to answer that one because
No, please.
I've said that, and that's what I mean.
Absolutely, yes. Your comments stand alone. Thank you. Right. Any more questions to officers before we go into debate? No. You're happy, Ken? You indicated that you wanted to speak, or you don't? Right. So we'll crack on with it. Debate. Members, we're in debate. So who'd like to kick that off? Councillor Cornwall?
Well, I'll kick it off, yeah, and say that I think actually, as far as this is concerned, the officers have got it right. If the applicants want to come back with another application, then well, that's up to them, isn't it? But as it is, based on the information that we have here on this application, then I think the officers have got it right.
Yep. I'm missing you now. You're sitting in that corner, you see, that's what it is. Now carry on.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, as I said before, when I first looked at this, I thought, oh, great. We're crying out for this type of units. I do know that we do have a very, very successful kickboxing club around there. They're taking on a second unit because their unit isn't big enough. I've got no problem with that, but I'm sorry to say, because it is so loose of what could or could not be there, and especially when it comes with, it could be retail, it could be cafes, etc. As you're all well aware, we're in the throes of our regeneration of our high street. We're losing shops right, left and centre. And I think if this application is approved as it's so loose, we could lose further shops. And at this time, I certainly cannot support this without a sequential test and a complete application.
Councillor Mayor, thank you.
Yeah, sorry. Having visited the site last week as well, it was quite obvious, and reading the reports, if Mr. Jackson sat there and said that they forwarded some more plans on this morning, I can't understand why we're even discussing this today. I think it should have been pulled off the agenda.
Well, that obviously that was the officer's call. It certainly wasn't my call. But anybody else got any more to add to the debate? Yeah, Councillor Benny.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, I'm very supportive of these units, which, you know, is my job at Fenland is economic growth, and nearly every application falls over because we just haven't got any space for it. When I looked at this, I thought, brilliant, this is what we need. We need some more industrial units. But I do agree, it does seem to be the usage is vague, should have been tightened up far more than it is. But I really don't think that, I don't think I can support this today, but equally, I don't think that if this is passed, this will affect the demise or bring about the demise of March High Street. You're not going to get Superdrug and Boots and WH Smiths moved down there. You're not going to get restaurants moved down there. It's a commercial area. You will not get that happen. This is for places like double glazing units, and manufacturing, small manufacturing units, which is exactly what we want. They will pay higher rates than retail will, because retail is struggling. That it economically does not stack up that this will be used for retail, restaurants, and that kind of business. This will be for small manufacturing, which is absolutely what we're crying out for. But I do think this is an incomplete application, and I think that this is an application that, if the paperwork had been completed properly, we would be supporting this wholeheartedly. It's a shame, because I really would like to see these units come online. We need them. It is in the middle of an industrial area, and they are industrial units. I think I can see where this is going today, and I do agree that it is the application hasn't been filled into its best, and to have the agent sit here today and say that there's plans that are following it up because it's not right. Why are we even here today? It's a shame, because I really would like to support it. I'd like to see these units pass, because Fenland needs them, not just March, everywhere does. And I do not for 1 minute think that this, if it went to retail use, that is not going to pull the demise of March Town Centre. It's not going to take Boots and WH Smiths and certain Specsavers out of March Town Centre. This will be places like Wright's Tools, which are already down there. And that's a totally different market at a totally different area. But my first view is that I would like to see them, but I really feel it's an incomplete application. If anybody would like to change my mind, I'm more than happy to have it changed, but I really feel that it's a shame the application has been put together in such a way that we can't pass this.
Okay, anybody else at all? Yeah, Councillor Sutton, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I've deliberately waited to make comment on this to listen to other members, because I've got mixed feelings about it. We all, I'm sure, want to see, you know, the commercial units develop. That would go without saying, I would expect. And as David said on the site visits, had the application been for Class E, is it Class E, D, G? If it had been for Class E, G, we wouldn't even have been here, because the application would have been passed. So whilst I would like to see the application approved, but I don't think we can do that. It would be setting a very dangerous precedent. And I also don't really want to see it knocked on the head at this stage, because I think there are, I mean, the agent, you know, I'm not going to knock the agent for assuming that he could, you know, take notice of the emerging local plan. There's nothing out there which would inform him or any other agent that they couldn't take any weight on that. That's, you know, just the way things are. So I certainly wouldn't knock him for that. What I would suggest to speed things up is that we defer the application for further negotiation with the officers. Take a clear steer that we would only accept Class EG, and it could quickly, well, I mean, if we defer it, it doesn't need to come back to this committee, because if it goes through and agree that it's EG, it can be done with officer delegation, you know. So rather than us refuse it and start a whole new process, let's give them the benefit of the doubt, defer the application with a view that the agent here is listened to what officer said, he's listened to what members are saying, and it seems we're, don't know yet, of course, but it seems we're fairly well unified on where we are. But my suggestion will bring it forward quicker than for us to refuse it and then start the whole process again. So that when it comes to the recommendations, that's where I will be suggesting, Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor French, good seeing you this time.
Thank you. Just to ask a question. I mean, I'm not disagreeing in some part what Councillor Sutton has said, but we're looking at what's in front of us today. So are we within our own rights that we could do that? But we've always been told we're looking at what is in front of us.
Thank you, councillor Frank, for bringing it up. Yep, Nick would like to come in there and just probably clarify it. Thank you.
Thank you. So councillor French has got it spot on in that, you know, committee's got the application before it, and that's what it needs to reach a decision. You should be using deferrals in order to get clarification on an issue such as whether or not a particular junction has got an accident record that committee's not hitherto aware of, and things like that, rather than trying to re-engineer an application which would have to go through another round of public consultation and then be brought back to committee potentially. So you've got to deal with the application that's in front of you, Chairman.
Yeah, I think it's a really good thought what Councillor Sutton had, but I think you're absolutely right. I think Councillor French is right, and it's been confirmed by Nick Harding here. So I think perhaps that's where we need to be on that one. Councillor Mayor, then Councillor Davis.
Yeah, I don't agree with deferring this application. I think we should make a decision on it. And I understood last week that the planning officers had tried to talk to the agent, whatever, to try and get this sorted so that it was in the right state to come to us, and it obviously didn't work. So I think we should accept what the officers have said, and the agent will have to come back with a different application. We have to look at every application in its own merit, and I agree with what the officers have done this time.
Quite right, Councillor Mayor. Councillor Davis.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we should defer it. You know, our job is to look at what's put before us for this meeting. And also there is the fact that it's recommended for refusal on 2 issues. Let's not forget the car parking issue as well.
Thank you. So just to remind members, we're in debate. Anybody else want to add to the debate before I close it? Can't see any burning. Oh, Councillor Benny. Thank you.
And I agree with Councillor Sutton. If this could be deferred, we could get this passed quickly. I don't see why not. The actual buildings won't change. It's just their usage. And if their usage is defined, that would also answer the car parking issue as well. And therefore, we're not looking at where the footings go, what size it is. We won't have to go out to reconsultation. We've got an overworked planning department as it is, and if it could come back on a deferral on what is basically a paper exercise to sort out the usage of it, I think that would be a much better use of time and bring the delivery of these units further forward at a much better time.
Yeah, I don't disagree entirely what you say, Councillor Benny, but we've been advised that we've got to look at what's in front of us, and I don't think we can deviate from that too much. I will take Councillor Cornwall, then I'll take Councillor Davis. Thank you.
I think, Chairman, if it was a one item, then I think there is a case for negotiation and a deferral. But we're actually talking about 2 things here. Not only the classification, but also the car parking. And there do seem to be issues with both, as I think we knew and what we discovered when we were down there ourselves visiting. So I think under the circumstances, rather than a deferral, in case there has to be a revision of layout and content and all the rest of it, I think the best thing to do is to determine it today. And I'll leave it like that, however we determine it.
Yeah, thank you. Wise words, Councillor Cornwall. Councillor Davis, please.
Yeah, when we first started, this particular application, people, members around the table were saying, well, it's an incomplete application. It's still an incomplete application. And if we decide to defer it today, we're sending out a message to other agents to say, well, bring your applications before us because you'll get away without doing the sequential test. We'll just defer it. No, the answer is it needs to be refused today. And I think the officers have it correct.
Yep, so we're still in debate. Councillor Sutton.
Thank you, Chairman. There's two things here. The parking issue only becomes a parking issue if those Class E used for retail. If they're used for E/G, then the parking issue it falls away, in my view. I never suggested that it was incomplete and never mentioned nothing in my spiel. Others did, yeah, absolutely right. But that's not to say we can't. And you know, notwithstanding the respect I have for officers, it's not unprecedented for us to defer something like this to improve it. You know, we've done it on other occasions, and there's no reason, in my view, I'd take legal advice on that. Nothing in my view that stops us doing that. We're a committee, we make the decisions. And if we as a committee decide that that's the right way to go, then I see no legal reason why we couldn't do that. But obviously, if the legal officer tells me different, then I will heed that advice. So that's what I'm asking now is, are we able to defer it on the reasons given, or are we not?
I'm going to bring in Stephen Turnbull. He's our legal officer, just for the record, just to make his comments to you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. It's one of those occasions when the legal position is broader than the planning policy position. And there's no doubt that legally you are entitled, if you wish to defer this application. It's whether you take the view that on the planning issues, it is a sensible thing to do. But legally, there's no embargo, if you wish to do so, in deferring the application.
Did you want to come back, Councillor Sutton, on that?
Chairman, I'm happy with that, that explanation. That I obviously wouldn't have that advice been yes, it would not be legal. Then I wouldn't. I would take that on board, and I'll obviously take on board that we can do that, and I believe we can, and I believe we have done before, and I still believe that would be the best way forward for this application.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. We're still in debate. Been a good debate. Councillor Scolding, thank you.
Yes, if it had been one thing, I'd agree with you. But there's two things, so I think we have to go with officers' opinion.
Okay. Obviously, that's Councillor. I know we've had a bit of dissension from Councillor Sutton, but that's obviously Councillor Scolding's opinion, and we have to take that on board as well. So.
If I may come back on that, Chairman, the parking issue, and I'll ask officers, or the officers can round up when we're finished. I think I'm right in saying that the parking issue, as I said before, falls away if there's no retail, because it's a retail that would bump into the parking issue. If the parking issue goes with just EG, then there wouldn't be an issue. That wouldn't be there.
Councillor Benny.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Sutton, because if you define the issue, you define your parking, and there is your answer. And that is a black and white mathematical sum which will come back with a yes or a no. And a deferment today would bring the delivery of these units far quicker than a refusal will. And we are crying out for these. Every business opportunity that we see come in is turned away because there just isn't anywhere for people to go. Like I say, I would love to see a way to get these units delivered.
And so would we all, Councillor Benny, but Councillor Cornwall, and then I'll take Councillor Murphy. Still in debate, guys.
The proposal that we have here for the actual building and so on actually does go into an area that is currently used by the users of the units to the north as a car park, and therefore there has to then be, if we accept this layout, a decrease, a considerable decrease actually, in the existing car parking area that we have all seen is heavily used. really heavily used. If you're going to build in it, then it reduces the amount of car parking space already there for that northern group of units. So the car parking issue actually, although this report centres on the possible change of car park quantity use, depending upon the classification of those properties within the plan, it actually has a wider implication on the car parking down there. So it is actually, in practice, a bigger issue than just related to that classification, as I see it anyway. Right, am I right?
Yeah.
Thank God for that. So I think, you know, on the face of it, therefore, that is probably a slight shortfall in the report anyway, especially as we hear that actually within this submission, that is actually a retail use in that first building, the one that overlaps. So therefore the car park needed there is actually greater than the other. So, you know, it's a big circle, this one, is it not?
It still needs breaking as well, this circle. Councillor Murphy and then Councillor Benny. Thank you.
Yeah, you're right there, Mr. Chairman. It certainly does. We sit here every month, every year, talking about proper and applications put in. This is not a proper application put in. It's no sequential test. It's the car parking. It's everything else with it as well. It's totally wrong. It's being put in to pull wool over our eyes to get something done there. And at the end of the day, we sit here and we say, we'll compromise with this, we'll compromise with that. What we've said all along for years, that's what you've got in front of you. We actually make a decision on what we've got in front of us. And we can't keep going off on a tangent, this, that, and the other. This is what the application is. Do we actually say yes or no to this application as it stands? And none of this flowing about where, oh, we can alter this, we can alter that. No, we can't alter this and that. We're here to do a job, and the job is to look at them, see what's down here, and not what can happen in a month's time, 3 months' time, 6 months' time, whether anybody's going to use a bit of a car park or not. This is what it's about, and we've got to make a decision on there.
Councillor Benny and then Councillor Sutton. Thank you.
I mean, is this allocated parking? Because if these other units had their allocated parking and this wasn't allocated as parking, then that's totally irrelevant whether this is used as car park or not. Because if it's waste ground and people are just parking their cars there, that is not a car park. You can call it what you like, but it's not. It's just a piece of waste ground that somebody's illegally parking on. And that throws the parking issue out completely. Because the allocated parking that would have been with each of these industrial units that are already down there would have had allocated parking. And if the land that we're looking at, planning is about land usage, and this application, if that was not, we're not looking at building a car park, we're building it on waste ground, is my assumption of this, in which case it's an irrelevant argument anyway.
Councillor Sutton, and I'm going to come in last, hopefully.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Well, the reason I'm hitting on that parking point quite heavily is because the words from David on the site visit was that had this been for EG, it wouldn't be at committee. So I have to assume that the parking issue and the whole thing, had it been for EG, would be okay. If I'm wrong in that assumption, then you know that's a different matter. But that's what David told us on the site visit.
That's a question, obviously, when we. For me, it's just disappointing, really. I called this into committee. It was a refusal. I called it into committee, and I'm really disappointed to learn that there's some plans going in at the 11th hour or 11 hour 58 minutes. I feel it should have been done sooner. Officers have tried to liaise with the agent, and I just think it's unacceptable to put officers and us through the debate we've had And it is really basically, and I'd love to see these units being built. And I've just spoken to Nick very quietly, and he tells me within 13 weeks, if everything goes tickety-boo and everybody does what they say they're going to do, this application can come back before Fenland in 4 months' time. I know it's 4 months that we don't want to waste, but we are where we are. And it was the applicant who doesn't seem to liaise with the officers to a great extent. So we must look at sympathies where they lay, and probably there shouldn't be too much sympathy with the agents, in my view. But I'm still happy to change my mind if that anything comes of it. So we're still in debate after my ramble. So finished, everybody? Thank you. So debate's now finished. Officers, would you like to sum up before I look for a proposal on this?
Through you, if I may, Chairman. I think, yes, if we were looking at an application for solely EG uses, given the nature of Thorby Avenue, its allocation in the local plan, or its identification in the local plan, it's highly likely that this would have been a delegated grant of permission several months ago. And from what Mr. Jackson said, we may even have been seeing units actually being built on site. However, I think several members have identified that's not what the application is for. And I think as well, with respect to some members, I think there's perhaps been a slightly oversimplification in the counter argument of, well, if it was all EG uses, then the application will be okay, because I think from what Mr. Jackson said, and I'm sure I'll be corrected if I'm wrong, he indicated that if the application was to be clarified, there would still be a mix of e-uses within it. It wouldn't just solely be 7 units for Class EG. And obviously there would need to be an assessment of the balance and the mix of those uses. And depending what that mix was, there may even still be a requirement for the sequential test. So in terms of members wishing to defer the application, it's potentially the case that the applicant would have to go away and still do several weeks, months of actual work before we're in a position to sort of deal with any future submission. So I think there's an issue there that members need to consider. There would, as part of any clarification to the description, need to be a reconsultation exercise, because it's only right and proper that occupiers within the vicinity know exactly what a proposal is for, kind of on their doorstep. So it wouldn't be as straightforward, I think, as members deferring it, saying, oh yeah, EG's absolutely fine, and then within a couple of weeks we're granting a permission for Class EG uses on the site. There are sort of a number of steps that would have to be gone through, and indeed, from what the agent said earlier, it doesn't sound as though the applicant actually wants to be restricted to just doing units that would fall within Class EG in any respect.
Yep, thank you, David. So, well, thank you for summing that up. I think you've done extremely well, David, with that. So I'm looking for a proposer. Councillor Mayor?
I propose we go with officer's recommendation.
Okay. Councillor Cornwall, it looks as though you're going to second this. So we've got a proposal on the table to go with officer's recommendation to refuse this application. We've got proposed by Councillor Mayor, seconded by Councillor Cornwall. Can we have a show of hands on that proposal, please? Thank you.
8 votes, Chairman.
Those against, for the record?
3 votes, Chairman.
Yeah, the application has been refused. Unfortunately.
Chairman, if I may, can I have it noted that I only voted against it because I think the deferral was a better option, please?
Yeah, that's noted, Joe. Thank you. It does, as long as it doesn't affect. Okay. Good.
Thank you. It's all right. You were stopping me, so okay. Yeah, there was a suggestion there during the last part of the debate But we were told that the reason why it had come to us, referred to committee, was because of something that an officer said. In actual fact, the reason why that came to committee is very clearly stated in the papers. And you did actually mention it. It was referred to committee on the advice of the chairman. Nothing to do with what an officer's told us on the on our travels. So can we just make that absolutely clear?
Yeah, and yes, and I did it. Obviously, I did it because it's just proven the debate. I was wrong, and I often get things wrong, as most people know, especially my wife. But I put it because I thought the committee would be interested in it, and it's so proved. Thank you. So that we'll end there. So, and now I'll hand over to David Rowan to present application. Sorry, Councillor Bennett. I've moved on from there, Councillor French.
But could I just have it noted also, like Councillor Sutton, that the only reason I voted against the application was because I also think that Fenland would have been a better option on that. It wasn't that I was against the actual application.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. Now I am going to move on. I'll now hand over to David Rowan, Development Manager, to present agenda item number 7, FYR 22-0505. It's a variation of conditions application. So David, when you're ready, please.
I will start again, given that I failed to put my microphone on. Apologies. So this is an application for variation of condition on planning application FYR 180947F, which was for the erection of 7 dwellings, and it seeks to enable the removal of a turning head from the approved plans. The location is 33 Gore Road in March. So the application site is shown in red on the location plan and aerial photo. Site indicated was the subject of a recent residential development of 7 dwellings, and this has been named as Magnolia Close. And as you can see from the aerial photo and indeed the location plan, it shows the development in various stages. So the approved layout plan is shown on the screen with the turning head illustrated adjacent to the eastern boundary of the site, or the bottom boundary as we're looking at it. With the chase running immediately to the side of that. And then to move on to the proposed plan, and this is how the development has actually been built out. As you can see, that turning head is not included. There's just a sort of a white dead area of land shown on the plan. The application also proposes to remove the 2 cherry trees, which are shown in this area, so that the two circles adjacent to the site boundary. So photographs are on the screen showing Magnolia Close is built. Within, in particular, the left-hand image showing where the turning head should have been constructed. So to summarise, as set out within the officer report, the Highway Authority have commented upon the application and maintained that the turning head is required in respect of highway safety. The officer recommendation is therefore to refuse the application as set out within the agenda. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, David. Once again, I'd like to invite Matthew Hall. He's the agent to make his presentation to the committee. You have 5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This development was largely completed in 2021 with properties occupied. One of the properties has been resold during this time. This is, as David said, a private block paved driveway. There are comments on the public access regarding not enough on-site parking. The development was approved in 2018 and still meets the parking standards requested by the local plan, and not setting this turning head would not affect the on-site parking. The applicant can provide further replacement of the trees as stated in the officer report. They haven't been removed, they're still there, as David said, and as per the neighbours' comments, we can provide some replacement trees. Of the two objectives received to the application, one has raised concern regarding a brick boundary wall being demolished. There are no walls, as per what the officer says in their report, to be demolished as part of this application. At the back of this report, it provides an approved site plan of the original development. However, the site plan that was approved under the discharge of conditions application, which I've got several copies here if anyone wants a copy, shows the bin, and it's available on the public access website, shows the bin lorry right from the start reversing into this site. This was commented on at the time by Highways and Environmental Services and is on the public access. Prior to any works commencing on site, the drawing clearly showed, as it's here, as part of the discharge conditions application, the bin lorry to reverse into this site. As part of the same discharge application, the applicant also provided, who still owns the road, an indemnity with regards to damage to the private block paved driveway. This was also agreed with the Environmental Services, and the officer at the time is available on the public access. We have a copy of an email from Adam Pratt, Environmental Services, which I've got a copy of here, which also states originally on the drawing, the swept path for the bin lorry was to reverse into Court Road into the actual site. The email further states that the bin lorry does not turn into the site and collections would not be affected by removing the turning head. The swept path that's provided as part of this application shows a 6.6 metre long vehicle could enter the site and turn at the end of the site without the turning head. A typical Amazon delivery van EDV 500 is less than this at 6.3 metres, and a typical Sainsbury's Sprinter delivery van is 6 metres long, less than this as well. The Environmental Services have confirmed that they do not enter the site since the development was completed nearly 2 years ago, and they would not use the turn-in head. The site complies with parking standards at the time and still does. And speaking with the applicant, to their knowledge, there have been no accidents within the site. And on looking at the Highways Officer's comments, there are no mention of any accidents to date at the junction of Gall Road. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hall. Members, questions to Mr. Hall? No, thank you very much. Members, questions to officers? Councillor Davis, thank you.
I just want, because, sorry, I'll start again. The reason for it coming before committee is town council comments contrary to officer recommendation. If you try and look at those comments on the website, it's all been redacted. We've just looked. We can't see what the comments were.
Councillor Davis.
March Town Council comments, which is what is the reason for it to be before us, have been redacted on the.
I've no idea why, because March Town Council very rarely put a lot of comments about any planning application.
Well, the whole no, but the whole report's been redacted. So.
If I may, through you,
Yeah,
Chairman,
absolutely.
I don't know what the answer to that is, or the reason why that's the case. I mean, all I will refer to is that at 5.1 in the officer reports, it does state that March Town Council recommend approval of the application.
Well, I know they're recommending approval, that's clear, but we can't see why they're recommending.
They probably wouldn't have given a reason anyway. Probably wouldn't have given a specific reason. Is it acceptable?
Through you, Chairman,
Yeah.
most likely they won't, as Councillor French, they won't have stated their reasoning why. And the reason why there's the redaction is because the other bits of the email don't relate to this application.
Yeah, that does seem a sensible comment. Thank you. So we're still open for officers. Questions for officers. Councillor Cornwall.
So regardless then, officers of what we've just heard, the county council is still sticking to the bit that, yeah, it should be refused because there's insufficient turning head there. Is that right?
Yeah, through you, Chairman. Yeah, but the county council's responses are set out at 5.2 within the report, page 87. They comment on the size of the vehicle used for the swept path is not suitable, does not demonstrate large vehicles to access the developments. The development will require servicing with various sizes of vehicles, therefore the lack of a turning head is not acceptable. They do acknowledge that as part of the refuse collection strategy, it was agreed that basically the bin lorry would sort of back from Gore Road into the site, but notwithstanding that, they maintain that there is a need for the turning head to be provided as part of the scheme.
Yeah, because we're talking about any vehicle and not just a small refuse wagon. Yeah, I see.
Questions for officers still, members? Councillor French.
Can you use your microphone, please? They haven't complied with the condition to supply the turning head, and within the report, you're looking also to enforce that. Is that correct?
Yeah, through you, Chairman. Clearly, if members are minded to go with operator recommendation and refuse the application, then the associated next step would be for the appropriate action to be taken to secure the delivery of the turning head.
Just one thing, when we went down there, you couldn't actually turn into there as a turning head because it was grown over. It was earth. It wasn't solid enough especially for a bin lorry to go down there anyway. But also, there sticking out of the ground there was a blue water pipe. So at the end of the day, what is it going to be? Is it supposed to be a turning area, or are they going to build another building on that area?
Through you, Chairman, without wishing to go back to the previous debate, members need to look at the application that's in front of them, perhaps, which relates to securing the delivery or otherwise of the turning head.
Yeah.
So I think so. Members, questions still? Officers, they've had a good. No, I can't see any more. No. Okay, thank you very much. So members, debate the application, please. Councillor French, then Councillor Cornwall.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I know this site exceptionally well. They first started applying for planning permission in 2007. It's got a very, very long history. I thought when the application was approved in 2018, it would have been done, dusted and everything else. Prior to any commencement on there used to be 14 TPOs on there, which should have been retained, and they've all gone. The two cherry trees weren't TPOs, but they're now dead. Why they're dead, I don't know. I wouldn't surmise. But if these trees were to be removed, I believe they're probably getting dangerous now, and they should be replaced with mature trees. And the other problem we've got down there, one of the houses that actually backs onto the actual chase has put an enormous light on the corner, which is an environmental infringement of forget the gentleman's name who lives at the house. His place is lit up like a Christmas tree. There's no need for that. If it's not already been looked at by environmental enforcement, I certainly think it should be. But I think in this occasion, the officers got this spot on.
Thank you for those wise comments, Councillor French. Anybody else at all? Yes, Councillor Cornwall, thank you.
Sorry, you'd forgotten that. No, sorry. I laugh. Yeah, I believe that in fact comments would be made. I think the speaker then, but bless him, he's obviously got a terrible voice, of throat and that today, so I feel for him. Yes, in fact, I hope I haven't infected everybody with that. If so, you won't be very popular in future, I tell you. When we actually had a site visit, and it's amazing the things that you notice, isn't it, when you actually do have site visits to actually see these sites. Comment was made that there's a turning head at the bottom. There isn't, unless you use someone's or two private drives. There is not a proper turning bay at the bottom. And in fact, that is further indicated by the fact that the grass on one side has been very badly churned up, where I assume things like parcel vans and so on have done their best to actually turn around at the bottom. There really is not a turning facility at the bottom of that road, which actually means that the original plan that was approved that hasn't been complied with was right. You do need that turning head in the middle of that road, as far as I can see anyway.
Okay, still in debate, guys. Just finding something out from officers. Still in debate, guys. Anybody want to carry on that? No, can't see any. No, right. Thank you very much for that. Officers, would you like to sum up, please? Nothing to sum up at all. Right, so looking for a proposal on the said application. Councillor French,
Move the officer's recommendations.
okay. I've got a second of Councillor Cornwall. Sorry? Cornwall, yeah, Cornwall, everyone you are. So we go with officer's recommendation to refuse this application. It's proposed by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Cornwall. Can we have a show of hands on that proposal, please?
Unanimous decision, Chairman.
Thank you very much, members. That application has been refused. It says we can have a comfort break here of 10 minutes, but I'm sure, does everybody want to press on, or does anybody want a 5 or 10 minute break? What do you like, Councillor French?
Whatever everybody else wants.
We'll have 5 minutes then, shall we? Or nearest we can get. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, members, for being back on time, officers. Now I'll hand over to David Rowan to present application F/YR21/1196F, agenda item number 8. So David, once again, when you're ready, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is an application to erect 2 single-storey buildings, including the erection of a 2.2 metre high brick wall and gates associated with a building contractor's business, involving the demolition of an existing workshop building and alterations to the access land east of Park House, Gorefield Road, Leverington. So the application site is shown in red on the location plan and aerial photo. It sits to the side of Park House and says currently used in association with the building contractor's business, which appears to be operating from the site, albeit this does not benefit from planning permission. The access to the development would be utilising the existing access from Gorefield Road, shown within the red line boundary, and then utilising sort of a private driveway running then to the right through to the core of the application site. So just to contextualise for members, this is a wider aerial view showing the site in relation to the settlement of Leverington, which is approximately 200 metres sort of to the east. So that it's considered that the core of Leverington as a settlement is pretty much where Gull Lane is, which is say sort of 200 metres to the east of the site. And clearly the site is outside the built form of the settlement and an elsewhere location for planning policy purposes. For completeness, a location plan is also provided showing the adjacent list of buildings. So Park House itself is a grade 2 star listed building, with then a further grade 2 listed buildings to the west of this. And then also there's a map of the site from the late 19th century provided, showing how the application site formed part of the parkland associated with Park House and is therefore part of the setting and the curtilage of that listed building. So the application proposes the erection of 2 buildings for use in association with the building contractor's business. So the 2 buildings are shown in grey. So the smaller building to the left is proposed as an office and sort of associated activities, with the larger building to the right for sort of storage and also a workshop element as well. A wall is also proposed to the north of the office to separate the development from the garden and Park House. It's also indicated that the existing workshop building would be removed, and then a gravel yard with sort of parking turning would be created as well. As indicated earlier, the access is via the existing access to Park House. Some sort of widening and improvement of this is shown on the plan, as is the erection of sort of entrance piers and walls at the junction with Gorefield Road. So plans of the larger storage building are shown. And then moving on, we've got the proposed plans for the office building. Moving on to photos of the site. So the upper left photo shows the existing access point at the front elevation of Park House, sort of in the middle of the photo. The upper right image shows the vehicular access between Park House and the site, and then the lower images show the current yard to the right, and then the parkland beyond. The existing hard standing that's in place seems to have been created sort of within the last couple of years, but without any planning permission having been granted for that. And then we've got some street view images showing the current access point, and then views either way along the frontage of the site on Gorefield Road. So to summarise, the application site is considered to be within the curtilage and the setting of a grade 2 star listed building, and it is considered to the development is considered to adversely impact on these heritage assets by virtue of its scale and appearance. The application is also not accompanied by sufficient information to justify and assess these impacts and the harm caused as required by policy. In addition, the scale and appearance of the development would also have an urbanising effect to the detriment of this countryside location. The site, as indicated earlier, is considered to be outside the built form of Leverington and is therefore an elsewhere location. The principle of development of this, such development in this type of location is not acceptable as the relevant policies of the local plan and indeed the MPPF seek to steer development of this nature to existing settlements. The officer recommendation is therefore to refuse planning permission as set out within the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, David. We have two speakers on this application. I'd now like to invite Mrs. Shana Jackson, she's the agent, of course, and Mr. Andy Sewell, the applicant, to make their presentation to the committee. As you're well aware, you've got 5 minutes between you. You obviously may start when you feel comfortable and able to do so. Thank you.
Good afternoon. This scheme is for the construction of 2 buildings to accommodate an established building contractor's business and the associated office. The business is a family-run local enterprise, and the proposal will allow for the applicant to work from his home at Park House. The applicant is keen to invest in the business to meet with demand, but is unable to do so in the rented accommodation which he currently operates from. This site presents an excellent opportunity to provide bespoke buildings which meet the specific needs of the enterprise, to secure the long-term viability and for it to be retained within the local area. 75% of the staff are from around Wisbech. The size and height of the buildings have been calculated to be specific to the exact needs of the business, and we've worked closely with a conservation specialist to ensure that the buildings have as low an impact as possible. They're single storey and are positioned approximately 50 metres away from Park House and behind a brick wall. They will not dominate any views or harm the setting of the listed building. The buildings are set well back within the site and will be screened from the front and side by the existing frontage trees and the forest to the east. As such, they will have no harmful visual impact on the visual amenities of the countryside. The nature of the business does not provide for semi-industrial activity, and the site will primarily function as an administrative hub and base for vehicles and equipment in between jobs. Members may recall the history of the wider site, which included the residential conversion of the barns, which were originally associated with Park House. These barns have now been converted or in separate ownerships. In effect, this proposal would replace these barns so that Park House would again benefit from associated barns, which would typically be expected of a building of this nature. You may also be aware of the previous use of the site, which was for the storage of stock cars, and evidence shows these were present on the land until 2020. And this demonstrates that there has been recent commercial activity on the land. Section 6 of the MPPF supports the rural economy and recognises that sites to meet local business needs in rural areas may have to be found beyond existing settlements. It states that sites that are well related to existing settlements should be encouraged where opportunities exist. The development will provide an economic use within a rural area which benefits from excellent transport links. There is no other land available and large enough to accommodate the specific needs of the business within the main settlement, and this land has a previous commercial use and is available now. I would argue that the site does represent an opportunity to promote appropriate economic development, thereby meeting Section 6 of the MPPF. I hope you can take the view that the significant local economic benefits of the case outweigh any perceived harm in relation to heritage and locational aspects and are able to grant planning permission accordingly. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much for that. Now I'd like to invite members to put questions to Mrs. Jackson or Mr. Sewell. If you'd like to ask a question, please raise your hand and who you want to ask the question to. Oh, does it? I'm sorry. Jumped the gun there. Sorry, Mr. Sewell. Would you like to carry on? I apologise.
I'd like to thank you for listening. We run a family business, and this is key to expanding and making our family business more productive. We've got a joinery section in with the company as well. We're looking to expand. At the moment, our rented accommodation is not suitable for expansion, so we're holding off at the moment purely to see how we get on with this application. We work for the likes of Costa Coffee, KFC, Burger King, Sandringham House, and we work all around the local area as well. That's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. I do apologise once again. Members, questions, clarifications, Councillor Cornwall. Thank you.
Right, hello, can I just start off? There are comments within the report that the use of the current land for a building contractor's business is unauthorised. Is that true?
Sorry, can you use your microphone with the plan?
Yes, we haven't put anything there in a search that wasn't there originally on some of the overviews of Google Maps. You can see where the area of what we are in now was always used for stock cars and creating scrap piles.
Right, so but the current use is actually unauthorised. You do accept that? Right, okay, thank you.
Well, also for the legal officer really as well. We're asked for this application there. It is actually totally illegal where it is. There is no planning permission for where it was at all. So what are we actually looking at? And we were looking at a piece of land that has got nothing on it whatsoever. So it needs a permission for a start, because it hasn't got permission for anything there at all. And if so, would you, with bearing in mind that it's a listed building, would you allow normally, without any permissions of any on the land there, buildings to be built next door to a listed building? Is that question to Nick or? Well, it's to both actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody? I think it's either Nick or David. Thank you.
Through you, Chairman. So the application is clearly part retrospective. So you've got a construction business being operated from the site without the benefit of planning permission. So the application before you is to make the use lawful, and secondly to construct these proposed new buildings and the associated infrastructure that goes with it. So that's what the proposal is. In terms of your second question as to is it possible for somebody to gain consent to construct buildings in the grounds of a listed building, then the answer is potentially yes. But a lot depends on how big, where, the relationship with the listed building, the significance of that building, so on and so forth. So it's a caveated yes, a heavily caveated yes.
Councillor Cornwall.
So in effect, we have a double application here, don't we? We have a part of the application, I suppose, is to regularise the current use, and then adding to that current use by building. I'm a little bit confused as to why it's being done this way. I would have thought it would have been better to have, in fact, regularised the use of, or not, of the business, the business use of that piece of land, which is immediately adjacent to quite a rare classification, I believe, for Fenland, isn't it? A grade 2 star, isn't it? We haven't got many of those folks, and yet this is well, in fact, some of the buildings, I believe, are presumably within that classification, are they not? Because it's not just the house that would be part of that classification, is it? It's the buildings and so on allied to it around it. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. And just to provide some additional clarification to what I said earlier, Chairman, the application in its own right doesn't seek to authorise the use as it sits there physically today, because it's asking you to regularise it in the context of what the proposal is. So you couldn't today make a decision to approve the use as it stands today, but not the construction bits of the development. So I hope everyone's clear on that.
Members, any more questions to officers?
Can I just have clarified that the two barns that were converted are also grade 2 listed? Is that what we were told?
Yep, through you, Chairman, the two barns that have been converted that Mrs Jackson referred to the west of the Park House, and they're grade 2 listed in their own right.
Okay. Any more clarifications, questions to officers before I open this up for debate? No? Right, we're open. The debate is now open, and I'm looking for someone to kick this off. Councillor Davis, thank you for doing that.
I'm actually torn on this one because while I like to respect conservation, our strapline is open for business. Here we have someone who's trying to extend a family business, provide, more employment. And I often wonder why we can't have new stuff sitting within and by listed buildings. I understand the need to protect these buildings, but it always seems to the detriment of something else. So I just want to listen to what other people think.
Yeah, so that's a very new aspect of looking at it, Councillor Davis. Anybody else at all still in debate? And thank you for kicking it off. Anybody want to add to that? Councillor Mayor, please.
Yeah, can I just clarify something else? In this, it says includes the erection of a 2.2 metre high brick wall and gates. Are the gates not already there? Is that already part retrospective, or are the gates that are there coming away and different gates being put there?
I will let, it's obviously officer can sum that up in the next tranche of the application, but I will let you please answer that if you can.
Sorry.
Very quickly to move on.
Through you, Chairman, the gates proposed effectively are between the two buildings. So you've got one building to the left, one to the right, and then something through.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Still in debate. Councillor Cornwall and Councillor Benny, thank you.
Yeah, I think I too am torn somewhat here between both aspects of this. To me, probably if the yard, the business side, was just sort of away a little bit further from the registered this building, I'd probably be a little bit more interested in sort of supporting the business. But sorry folks, this is right next to it. And in fact, I think some of the buildings therein are actually incorporated. It seems to me that we're not clarifying, if you like, between the two things here somehow within the proposal. I think I'd be more inclined to support it if there was this physical distancing between those two. And from looking at the plot, there's enough land for that to actually happen, I would have thought, and still have given, how can I put it, visual protection to the house and so on, at the same time as creating what obviously is a business need. And maybe a little bit more thought should have gone into that aspect of the application. I don't know. I think that's the way I would try and sort of justify both things, to be quite honest. I think without that, I'm really, really struggling here, folks. I really am, because that is a grade 2 star listed, and that is not a very common thing within Fenland, is it?
Indeed it isn't. Councillor Benny, thank you.
Yeah, I look at this, and as a council, we should be encouraging growth. We've got a man here who is investing in his business.
Yeah.
Just look at the house. You don't live in a house like that unless you're making money. And if he's making money and he wants to make more money, he's going to drag a lot of people along with it and make other people money as well. Yeah, it's a grade 2 star listed building, but this was before my time on the planning committee, the committee passed at Doddington, a house just up from where you lived. It was a very, Mr. Chairman, a very old building, and it had a very contemporary addition to it. And I believe that that had a big debate at the committee when that came. And you look at that today, and that looks lovely. These people, these dwellings can live side by side. It's not all detriment. It's not all bad. There's a lot of good with this. We've got a man who's running his business there, and I've said many times at planning committee, the best way to look after your business is to be on the premises. It's a rural area. You've got rural crime out there. If he's living on the premises or close to his business, he can keep an eye on it. And that's the best security he'll ever have. And the fact he's gone to the trouble of putting this application in, that he obviously feels there's a need for it and he can make money out of it and bring people along. And for a builder's yard, my granddad was a builder. And as a builder, you get noise in a yard. You couldn't build this in a residential area. It doesn't fit. It's got to be somewhere out the way. And it is an ideal situation, or ideal place to put a builder's yard. I see how the report is written, but there is another side to this, and I really feel I can support this application.
Yep. Councillor Sutton, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. It is always a difficult decision on these when it's heritage clashing with business or whatever else. I think officers have got this one right. There is plenty of industrial land in the current local plan. No reason whatsoever that Councillor Benny says it wouldn't fit in a residential area. Well, no, of course it wouldn't, but it would very much fit in an industrial area, which we've got plenty. So to build this next door to a grade 2 star doesn't sit very well with me at all. And for that reason, I will go with officer's recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Sutton. Councillor Cornwall.
Yeah, Chairman, yeah, I do have this dilemma, and I hope people appreciate that. But I think it could have been a better application. I think this is what I'm trying to say, that if there was a very clear distinction between both operations, the operation of the business, which, yeah, okay, it's doing well and all the rest of it, and the actual protection of the immediate area of what is. I must admit, I was surprised when I saw the house from the road. I thought how attractive it was, and it's obvious that work has gone in, and it does need. These places are a bit like the Forth Road Bridge, aren't they? Although they don't paint that anymore. That's it needs probably the investment from one to help the other, and vice versa. I understand all that, but I still think there should be a much clearer definition of the two uses: the building, the house and the buildings, and the business. And it could be done in a way that protects the heritage of one, and in effect doesn't stop the other from going ahead. That's what I'm trying to say. As it appears at the moment, I think it's far too close. There's no gap between them. There's absolutely nothing there. It's straight into it, including, I believe, the gate. From memory, that goes across. You actually have to drive across the front of the property to actually go through the gate to get in the building site, I believe. Do you know? So, and that's the way I'm looking at it. So, yes, I can see. I can see the need for the commercial bit, and I can see the need to protect the building. And I think there's a different way of doing it compared to the submission, to be quite frank with you. I think there's a far more acceptable way that this could be done. And I suppose on that basis, the only thing to do is to go with officer's recommendation, to be quite frank with you.
Obviously, we're still in debate, and obviously, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. Whilst the local plan and national policy does make provision for the expansion of existing buildings which are located within the rural area, i.e. outside of towns, the starting point for this application is there is not a lawful business operating from this site, and therefore you can't really use as your starting point the fact that this is an expansion of an existing business on the site. That being said, you've got your policies which say when a new business wishes to open up within the rural area, then that is restricted in what it can be, i.e. it needs to be located in a rural area because of the nature of the business. This is a construction business. It doesn't need to be located in an open countryside location. The town is where our policies say it should be located. And also moving on to sort of the detail of the impact that it has on the listed building. So you've got the issue of the scale of the buildings themselves and the scale of the area of land which is proposed. And that's, in our view, is clearly impacting on the setting and appreciation of the heritage asset. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you for summarising that, Nick. Still in debate, of course. Anybody want to add to the debate? No. Right, debate's closed. Off. Any more? I'm going to look for a proposer now. So anyone, Councillor Sutton?
Propose to go with the officer recommendation, Chairman.
Okay. Okay, so Councillor Sutton, have we got a second for? Can we have a show of hands on that proposal, please? Yeah, those against?
6 votes, Chairman.
So that proposal has been approved then. Thank you.
No, Chairman.
No, it's been no, it hasn't. It's been approved.
No, Chairman.
So yeah, submission. Yes, absolutely. You're right, absolutely. So that has refused that one. So we're looking for another proposal then. That's another proposal now because that's been refused. So anybody, Councillor Benny?
Yeah, I'd like to prove we go against officer's recommendation and approve this application.
On conditions?
LP3
reasons.
I think it's a perfect place to build in LP3 and in the open countryside. You can't build it in the town. I don't think that LP6 is going to affect the rural economy. I think it enhances the rural economy. Delivering and protecting high quality environments. I don't think it detracts from the high quality environment that we've got in terms of the listed building. I think that they can live side by side. And I think it's just a matter of interpretation as to whether you feel that it's an enhancement, it's a subjective view, and that's my view. And LP18 requires that the development proposes and assesses the significance of the heritage asset, and I feel that that does address that. I don't think it's detrimental to it. I think the landscaping and the building is up and running. I think this will add and it will ensure that the longevity of the listed building, because it will give the person who owns it the money to spend on it and keep it in very good order. So I feel that that would be my reasons for going against it.
Yeah, bearing in mind what you've just said, I'm quite happy with those reasons. So have we got a second of the Councillor Benny? Councillor French? So we've got, okay.
Is that, Chairman, with delegated authority?
Oh yes,
Conditions.
that's obviously with officer delegated conditions. So we've got to go against officer recommendation to approve this application proposed by Councillor Benny, seconded by Councillor French. Can we have a show of hands on that, please?
Six votes, Chairman.
So that application has been approved. Thank you. So without further ado, I'll now hand over to David Rowan to present application FYR 22-1266F, agenda item number 10. Thank you, David.
That's fine. Thank you through you, Chairman. Agenda item number 9 is a outline application with all matters reserved for the erection of a dwelling involving the removal of existing shed, land west of 121 West End in March. So the application site is shown in red on the location plan and aerial photo. It fronts onto West End and then backs onto the River Nene. A wider aerial view is provided to show the site in further context. You see somewhat sporadic development to the south of West End with a more consolidated form of development to the north. Whilst the application is in outline with all matters reserved, an indicative site plan has been submitted. This shows the rear portion of the site is within flood zone 3, with a dwelling in the front portion of the site, which is in flood zone 1. The layout, however, is considered to show a dwelling which would be crammed between existing dwellings, especially when the footprint and spacing of the existing pattern of development is compared. An indicative elevation has also been provided of the dwelling. So photos on screen show the character of the site and the area. So the upper left image shows the application site. Essentially, this is to the other side of the low hedge. The upper right image shows this in more detail. The structure to be removed is sort of partially visible behind some of the shrubs there. It's to the right-hand side of the image. The neighbouring dwelling of 122A is also visible just through the vegetation. And then the lower images show the view along West End, sort of either way from the site. So to summarise, while the site is within the built form of March and the broad principle of residential development may be broadly acceptable, when looking at the actual specifics of the site, the dwelling would appear crammed within the site, would result in the loss of the side garden to 121 West End, which is considered to add to the character and appearance of the area. The consequent visual harm of a dwelling being built on this site is considered contrary to the relevant policies of the local plan and the aspirations of national policy, and the recommendation is therefore to refuse as set out within the agenda. Thank you, Chairman.
Yep, thank you, David. We have one speaker on this application. I'd like to invite Matthew Hall, of course, he's the agent, to make his presentation committee. You have 5 minutes, Mr. Hall. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members will realise that there are no technical objections to this application from March Town Council, Highways, Environment Agency, Environmental Health, or the Wildlife Officer. One of the key points with this application is access, and Cambridgeshire County Council Highways have not objected to the application. Along this section of West End, there is street lighting, and our proposal shows which is indicative on-site parking for both the existing and proposed dwelling. There's parking on site at the moment for the existing dwelling. Where any dwelling would be set would all be in flood zone 1, and the Environment Agency have not objected. What's not come out in the report is during the application I spoke to the planning officer myself, and we advised, even though the proposal we've shown is indicative 2-storey small family house, this could be reduced if it helped to 1.5 storey, which is what the property to the west is, and the property to the east is 2-storey. So we did offer that. Within the officer's report under 10.12 and 10.13, it advises that there would be limited impacts of overshadowing and overlooking from this indicative proposal. Looking through the report, if it assists, we would be happy as part of condition to provide a construction phase plan, which would be agreed with officers. There are no technical objections to this application. It's within the built-up form of March, as Mr. Rowan said. It's in flood zone 1, and there are no highway objections. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Hall. Members, questions, clarifications to Mr. Hall, please. No, I can't see anybody. No, thank you very much. Thank you. Members, questions to officers, please. If you have any clarifications, of course. Give everybody a chance. Can't see anybody. Thank you very much. So now members, I'd like to invite members to debate the item. Thank you. Who'd like to kick that off? Councillor Scolding, thank you.
Yeah, the officers were saying it's squashed in, but if you go down West End, every house is like that, so I can't see a problem with it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Scolding. Anybody else want to add to the debate? You, I know. You can sit where you like, Councillor French. Now, Councillor French, it's your turn. Thank you.
Thank you.
We shall move you over to where Councillor Scolding is next time, so you're in direct view.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, this is part of my Fenland District Council district ward. I know West End exceptionally well. If you start walking from the top of West End, which starts at Peace Hill Road, I think it's something like 2 miles long. There are so many different designs. I mean, some of them were built in 1600. I never remember his name, but the chap who drained the fens actually lived in. Oh, that's it. Lived in the one of the houses there, and it's very well preserved. We have got a complete mixture. What some are small, some are large. I don't see that there's any real reason to refuse this. The only thing I would agree that it should be 1.5 story and not 2 story. But you know, if you actually walk down West End, it's a beautiful walk, and it's quite amazing to see some of these houses. And the people who live there believe it's the gem of March.
Yeah, indeed, you're right in some of your comments. Councillor Sutton, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I couldn't disagree more. Walking down there, you know, it is a single track, but it's barely a cycleway. And to put more traffic on, I know we haven't had no objections from the highways, but to me, it is just ridiculous. And there may be a hodgepodge of stuff down there, and some of them may be nice and some of them may not be, but that's not a reason to make it even worse. I couldn't possibly support this. I think officers have got it exactly right. It will detract from the area. So I should be going with officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, we're still in debate, guys. Anybody else at all want to? Councillor Cornwall, thank you.
Yes, it's certainly bijou anyway, isn't it? Now whether bijou can be done in such a way that it really fits in, I don't know. Interesting that actually the frontage of West End is actually quite a bit narrower than the riverside frontage. I didn't realise that plot when we had a look had got such a sharp angle across it. I think most of us sort of looked at the line of 122A and we were thinking that it was much wider, but it isn't. It's quite narrow at that point, isn't it? Yeah, West End is not a suitable highway. I mean, let's be perfectly honest about it. In fact, we nearly got run when we were down there. We nearly got run over by 2 cyclists anyway, you know. So yes, it's very narrow down there. And I must admit, I didn't realise that actually cars could get down that far, to be quite frank with you. Can't be very big cars that get down that far anyway. That's a dead cert. I think if it's done right, it will have an attraction. The attraction actually isn't West End. It's probably the river that's the attraction, and the possibility of constructing something along what I believe used to be the port, didn't it, down there? Or, anyway, or the harbour in those days. Yeah, I'm torn again because it is crammed in. There's no 2 ways about it, but it is a very strange part of the town in a way, because it is its own. There's nothing else like it. It's very narrow. It's very constricted. If this is done right, it could be good. If it's just plonked up, it's going to look awful. So I hope that if we do approve it, we put some fairly strong conditions in there, including during building. How on earth they're going to get some of the construction materials down there? I think, unless they're going to come off the river, of course, they could do. So I would, yeah, I'm a little bit iffy at the moment about it. But if somebody thinks they can make a good do of it, and it looks nice and it fits in, I'll support it. But otherwise, if this is just going to be a modern thrown up building, quite frankly, I'm not interested because that would just detract from the whole area.
Yeah, thank you, councillor Cornwall. Anybody else at all? We're in debate still, of course. No, I'm going to close the debate now then. I can't see any burning desire to speak about it. Okay, that's finished. Did you want to say anything, councillor Benny? No, we just, okay, that's fine. Right, we're going to go in, debate's finished. We're going to, officers, would you like to say anything? We'll sum up, so to speak.
Through you, Chairman, just to remind you that it's an outline application. So if you were minded to approve it, it would just be standard conditions about materials and basic things like that. So you couldn't say anything that would influence the design and appearance of the scheme. And save for maybe mentioning something in the informative to say that, you know, it's felt that a 1.5 story would be appropriate, but I'd advise against that simply because, you know, potentially a 2-story well-designed property may well work. Who knows what the skilled designer might come up with. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Question. Any more questions for officers? Can't see any. So thank you very much for summing that up. Look, we'll start in the debate then. Who would like to kick that debate off? No, sorry, a proposal, sorry. Councillor Sutton.
Proposal go to the officer's recommendation, Chairman.
So we've got a proposal to go with officer recommendation to refuse this application, proposed by councillor Sutton, seconded by councillor Cornwall. Can we have a show of hands on that proposal, please? Those against?
7.
So that has been rejected. So we're looking for a new proposal, please. Councillor French.
Go against officers' recommendations and to approve this. I don't believe that it will harm the area. In actual fact, I believe it will enhance the area.
Okay. Right. Have we got a second for that? Councillor Scolding, thank you, Councillor Scolding. So we've got a counter proposal to go against officer recommendation to approve this application. Councillor French is proposing, Councillor Scolding is seconded. Can we have a show of hands on that proposal?
Chairman, is that with delegated authority?
Yes, yes, that goes without saying now, I think, although we have to mention it, but that's good enough. So it's outline planning. I think Councillor French has got it right on that. I'm happy to. Yep, okay, so we've done with that, so that's fine. So to go against officer recommendation, I'll just read it from those again. That application has been approved. Thank you. Finally, we'll go to ask David to present application F/YR 22-1266F, agenda item number 10. So David, when you're ready, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is an application to erect an electricity substation on land southeast of the Boat House, Harbour Square, Wisbech. The application has been submitted by Fenland District Council. So the application site is shown in red on the location plan and aerial photo. It sits to the south of the Boathouse Business Centre in Wisbech. The wider site is currently subject to an application for redevelopment, and the substation applied for here would be required in connection with this. However, whatever decision members come to on this application would have no prejudicial bearing on that other application. So the site plan on screen shows the substation being accessed by the Boathouse car park to the north. And then the Layouts and elevations are shown on screen. You can see it's got a flat roof giving an overall height of approximately 2.76 metres, and the plans indicate red brick walls. As the land drops away, a platform would be created for the substation to sit on. Photographs on the screen show the views across the boathouse from sort of a couple of vantage points, and the substation will be sort of sited off centre in both of these. Clearly, there's a long-term aspiration for the overall character of the area to be changed, and obviously those views will no doubt change accordingly. So to sum up, it is considered that there are no adverse impacts arising from the proposed development, and the application is therefore to grant permission as set out within the agenda. Chair.
Yeah, thank you once again, David. We've had a busy afternoon. We have no speakers on this application, so I'd now like to invite members to questions to officers. If you've got any questions to ask or clarification to ask, please raise your hand. And I bet I know what Councillor Cornwall's is. Carry on, Councillor Cornwall.
Well, yeah, I mean, I assume if we said no to this would completely cause problems for in another place, wouldn't it? But that's beside the point.
That's not the question, Councillor Cornwall.
That's
Right,
right,
not the
okay.
question.
There were some discussions actually about the statement that the design of this monstrosity was acceptable. Is there any chance that we can actually make it look a little bit like the boathouse rather than a brick built thing with a flat roof? In other words, a little bit of a modern finish on it, timber finish, you know, just like the boathouse. So it actually does fit in with the place rather than becomes just a brick built eyesore, to be quite frank with you. You know, the only thing, yeah, I've got no problems with the damn thing itself, but it will be a straightforward electricity substation that sits there looking like a sore thumb. That's my concern. Why can't we just have something that fits in with the award-winning design that it's next door to? That's all.
I'm sure David or Nick would love to come in and try to get to you on that one. Thank you.
Through you, Chairman, condition 2 that's recommended does talk about the full details of the materials to be used for the external walls to be submitted and approved in writing before effectively the substation is built. If members are minded to require a slightly sort of higher standard of materials, then that's no doubt something that we can potentially put on as an informative on the decision notice. I think it would be perhaps a slight issue to be maybe too prescriptive about that, because I'm not sure, for example, what sort of safety issues would be in terms of having timber clad electricity substations, for argument's sake. So I think that's something that would perhaps need to be looked at. But you know, as I say, if members are minded to want a higher quality of finish, then that is within your gift to sort of put that on.
Would you like to come back there, Councillor Cornwall?
That's possible, so because we're quite happy then to have the boathouse burned down if there's an electrical fault, but yeah, as long as the substation's okay, we're happy. Right, okay, slightly strange way of looking at it, but yeah, okay. I raise the issue because I think yeah, I think it could be made to look decent, that's all, as opposed to just a block, which it will undoubtedly be. I rest my case.
Did you want to speak, Councillor Scolding?
No, I was just going to say wood does catch fire. So, and I think you have to think of the safety reasons. So I'd go for brick every time, brick or block.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Let's get some semblance of order. Councillor Sutton, please.
Yeah, in terms of cladding it would make no difference to the fire risk of it, because the fire risk and the fire protection would be the brick part of it. So to clad it on the outside, I mean, if it's going to blow up, it will blow up and set fire to all sorts of things. The cladding on the outside will make no difference. So if you know, members agree that that's what we think should happen, then why not?
I'm not,
Through you, Chairman, I think officers' concern is that there may well be a specification that the electricity company has to work to, which would then prevent doing all these add-ons to it. As David has indicated, we're happy to give it a go, but can't guarantee an outcome. So picking, it's a long time since I've been to the boathouse, I will confess. But in terms of the railings around the block, if there is a particular design of railing used on the sort of promenade area adjacent to the river outside the boathouse, then perhaps that could be replicated in the design of this. So we'll pick that up in an informative.
okay. Still questions, clarifications to officers? Any more before we close that? Anybody more questions, clarifications for officers? No? Okay, so now we're looking to debate the application. So who'd like to kick that off? Okay, go on, Councillor Murphy, quickly. Thank you.
I'll be honest. I've been on here for a long time. I really don't feel that we could start debating monstrosity like this would be, because it's supposed to be there, it's got to be there, it's got to be there for the rest of the thing that's going to go on around there. We've got to have it.
Yeah.
Let's have it. What's wrong with it? You see them all over the place, exactly the same.
Okay. Okay, well, Councillor Corn was quite adamant that he would like to see a little bit better design on the outside, aren't you? No. Just, no. That's it. Oh, no, one can't be.
Nothing funny. You go about all over the country. Do you ever see one that's done up with bells and lights and everything else on? Whistles on? Yeah, you don't. Electricity substations, electricity substation.
I can see Councillor French. Councillor French, you'd like to say something? I did actually see you this time.
Thank you. I think we should listen to what the officer said. They said they will try, and that's all
Absolutely.
they can do.
I'm happy with that. Councillor Sutton, would you like to quickly go ahead?
Thank you. I pick up on Councillor Murphy's point. They are all over the country. That is absolutely right, and we need it there. That is absolutely right. But that's not to say we can't have something better. Why would we not want something better? And particularly if it's going to be built out by FDC, which who knows whether it ever will be. You know, this monopoly company they've got playing with other people's money, but it might or might not happen. But
Councillor Sutton, I think you're
for
out
us,
of order.
for us to,
We
I
mustn't,
really do think you're out of order.
we
Well,
mustn't,
you can
we
think
mustn't
what-
get in any
can think what you
political
like.
things here. It's
Um,
apolitical. Let's
but
just debate what's, sorry, Councillor, let's just debate what's in front of us. We
Yeah.
can't get any political discussions here with us.
There's nothing wrong
Yes,
with
we're doing
asking
well
for-
or no, we're not. Thank you.
there's nothing wrong with asking for something better. And
Absolutely.
actually, Councillor Murphy is wrong, because I can take him to something very, very close to us. It's not an electricity substation. It's a water pump station, which did have palisade fencing around it, and that has now got a nice wood cladding and looks completely different in the middle of a housing estate. So it is been done, can be done, and should be done.
Anybody else wanted to add to the debate? No, officers now, please sum up if you've got anything to say. No, thank you. Right, we're looking for a proposal on this. Go on, Councillor French.
Move officers' recommendations.
Okay. Councillor.
Well, yes, we did ask them to
To do
talk to
whatever
them,
they
yes.
can. Councillor Davis. Yeah, so that's just, just to add an informative on there, they've got the builders or they've got to make it as attractive as humanely possible.
If it's if it is possible,
Yep.
but bearing in mind the cost of building materials at this time,
Yep.
do not make it so that it won't happen.
So, yeah, that's that's a given now. So I think officers are completely understanding of what we require of them. So let's go back to it now. We've got a proposal by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Davis, to go with officer recommendation to approve this application so can we put a hand up with those two, please? Okay, that application has been approved. And this concludes the planning meeting at round about 3:30. And thank you very much all for attending. Thank you.